Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the July 15th meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality. Welcome, everybody, and welcome Deputy Chief Dean Simmons, who's representing Chief McLean today. Madam Clerk, we do have quorum.
Yes, Chair O'Malley, we do have quorum.
Excellent, thank you. We'll start off with the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. And as well as a permanent item under the acknowledgement, we have adopted the African Nova Scotia Affirmation Statement, and I'd like to read that, and this will be a recurring agenda item. The Halifax Regional Municipality recognizes the unique history, heritage, and enduring presence of the African Nova Scotians, whose roots in Nova Scotia span more than 400 years. We celebrate the significant contributions of African Nova Scotians to the social, cultural, economic, and civic life of our municipality, and acknowledge the leadership, knowledge, and excellence that continue to enrich our communities. This affirmation reflects our commitment to honoring the legacy and ongoing contributions of African Nova Scotians in the Halifax Regional Municipality. Are there any community announcements? Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to welcome Chelsea Thomas, who's in the room today with us. Can you stand, Chelsea? Chelsea is my mentee. We have a fellowship program going on at the municipality right now. It's an 8-week program for African Nova Scotia students. And so I asked her to come along. She's tagging along with me wherever I go, hopefully. And we're just introducing them to the municipality, introducing them to what we do, and hopefully that they get engaged to the point that maybe one day they'll be in this seat. So thank you.
Another politician in the making.
She definitely is.
Excellent, thank you. Any other community announcements? No? Okay, move on to approval of the minutes. Can I get a call for an approval of the minutes from June 3rd, please? Thank you, Commissioner. Seconder? Thank you, Commissioner. All those in favor, please, are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Barring none, all those in favor? Motion carried, unanimous. Approval of the order of business. Clerk, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Chair O'Malley, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda, but we do have one deferral, which is item 8.3.1, Violence Against Women Advocacy Case Review Model, the presentation by Sunny Mariner. That's being deferred to a future meeting of the board at the presenter's request, as they could not attend today's meeting due to unforeseen circumstances.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do commissioners have any additions or deletions or modifications they'd like to make to the order of business? Hearing none, can I call for a motion to approve the order of business? Commissioner Bezic-Escanlar and seconder, Commissioner Hinch. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the order of business signify by raising their hand. Motion carried, unanimous. No business arising out of the minutes. Declaration of interests. Commissioners, does anyone have a conflict of any of interest to declare as a result of any item on today's agenda? Seeing none, we shall move on. No deferred business. Correspondence. Madam Clerk, is there any correspondence to note?
Chair O'Malley, there was no correspondence received or circulated for this agenda.
Thank you kindly. And I assume no petitions?
That is correct.
Okay. Any commissioners have any petitions to note? Thank you kindly. All right, moving on under 8.3. 8.3.1 is going to be deferred. And so we'll move on to item number of note. There's no information brought forward. Item number 9. Item number 10, 10.1, the Halifax Regional Police and the Canadian Mounted Police Chiefs updates. So I'd like to start with and call upon Chief Superintendent John Duff. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start out my update with the statistical update based since the last meeting. Total calls for service for the month of June was 5,655, which is up 791 from the same period in 2025. The total proactive assignments was 1,996, which is up 239 from previous year's same period. IPV files at present, 133, which is a reduction in 4 from the previous month. And the high risk IPV files currently sits at 25, and it's a reduction in 7 from the previous month. So we've seen a little reduction there, so that's good news. In respect to traffic, of course, we always discuss traffic. It's a topic at all our community engagement sessions. The traffic stops conducted during this period of time were 1,274, which is an increase of 528 from the previous time frame. The total number of offenses were 217 associated to speeding, 89 unsafe or / reckless driving. Invalid or expired documents was 243, distracted driving 26, NVDA motor vehicle collision related offenses were a total of 85, which is a reduction of 29 from the previous year. And in respect to collisions, 138 during the time period, which is an increase in 1 from the same time last year. Impaired driving, a total of 56, which was a reduction of 12 from the same period in 2025. So the statistics are relatively consistent in a lot of areas, but the proactive piece is increasing, which is good news, which we want to carry on. Some highlights of occurrences during the month. June 6, officers responded to a break and enter Highway 7, Beaver Harbor. 4 masked men had arrived in a silver sedan, broken the gate, and were walking around the property. Officers attended the scene and deployed a tire deflation device at the exit gate, and ultimately were able to apprehend the individuals. They're all facing break and enter charges, mischief charges, possession of property obtained by crime, and theft charges. June the 9th, officer was proactively patrolling Highway 101 in Lower Sackville. Stopped a Mazda after it was observed traveling 127 kilometers an hour in a 100 zone. While the driver was retrieving his documents, officer observed evidence consistent with illegal drug possession. As a result, the vehicle was searched. Unstamped tobacco, cash, and a quantity of cocaine were seized from the vehicle. So traffic enforcement leading to further investigation, which is very positive. On June 9th, officers responded to a report of a robbery that had occurred off Caldwell Road. Officers learned the 2 youths confronted another youth, produced a BB gun, and as a result, stole a vape from the victim. 10th, one of the youths was arrested and processed. The second youth has been identified as well. On June 20th at approximately 4 p.m., HRD responded to a report of shots fired near Amos Walter Drive and Downey Drive in North Preston. Officers arrived on scene and located a number of shell casings on the road. No signs of injuries, no property damage. That investigation is ongoing. On June 29th, I'm going to just highlight a couple of impaired driving offenses after this. So it's just going to jump out a date a little bit. On the 29th, RCMP responded to a report of a deceased man in a residence. While on scene, officers located a second man, also deceased. The investigation is ongoing through work with CID, and we are waiting for the talks on the matter. Further information will be shared when we recognize the reasons for the deaths, but there's some strong indication of drugs being involved. June 2nd, RCMP Halifax Regional Detachment, EHS and Fire responded to a single vehicle crash on Austria Road. While en route, officers learned that a Dodge Caravan had struck a tree and the driver was displaying signs of impairment. The individual was ultimately located, charged with multiple driving offenses. On June 11th, officers responded to a call. A 20-year-old male from Fall River was located and provided samples of 90 milligrams %. Another impaired driver was located on the head of Chesapeake, hard for me to say, refused and facing charge. Can you help me? June 21st, impaired driver, 2 samples of 200 milligrams % located by members proactively. On the 24th, readings of 120 and 110. On July 1st, sorry, this is supposed to go to June 30th, but it's within the time. Another impaired driver of 140, 150. So there are multiple examples of that where the proactive patrols are locating these individuals on the road, making our roads safer. So we continue to drive that. We encourage the proactive patrols, and all our supervisors are similar-minded, and we think we're having some success. But it is a little bit discouraging to see the number that are actually being located. So it's the proactive work's causing our numbers to be elevated, which is a good thing. It's just sometimes requires some explanation, that relationship between proactive and offenses like driving. So, and barring any questions, that's my report for June.
I think we're going to save the questions till the end, but just before we invite Deputy Chief.
Oh.
Okay. Our Chief Superintendent has decided to retire. He is going to start to spend more time training for his next Ironman, right?
Well, there might be one more left.
One more left in the legs, in the arms, the swim, and the
The head's the more important part, so that's the question. The legs should survive.
We couldn't let. I know you didn't want any recognition, but we couldn't let you go without recognizing you and your contribution. So I just wanted to read this and thank you personally. Chief Superintendent, so the officer in charge for the RCMP Halifax Regional Detachment. So in recognition of your outstanding leadership, professionalism, and dedication to the Halifax Regional Detachment and the residents of HRM, throughout your time here, you have made a meaningful contribution to public safety, strengthening community partnerships, and fostering the spirit of collaboration that is essential to effective policing. Your commitment to service has left a lasting impact on both your colleagues and community, and we're grateful for all your contributions. And you've left a lasting impact on this board, and we're grateful for all that you've brought in the conversation and the leadership. Thank you very much, John.
And Chief Superintendent's a long-lasting tradition here. When Chief Superintendent retires from here, you buy a round of milk for everybody. That tradition just started.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this. I really do. It's a little bit bittersweet for me. This was coming home for me. However, my family's still out west. So I'm making the decision for the right reasons to support my family. And, it is, my mom's still in Cape Breton. She's turning 88 on Tuesday, and the whole family's going to be there. So I'll be back and forth. But I thank the board. I thank my partners, my colleagues. I've been treated nothing but fantastic by everybody I've been involved with. And it's truly a fantastic way to end my career. So thank you again. Appreciate
Well, we never did get out for that bike ride. We talked about
it.
it.
Yeah, well,
But
I would have
maybe
some more
there's still a
time.
couple of weeks left.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. All right, Deputy Chief, you're up.
Thank you. As mentioned, I'm Deputy Dean Simmons, Deputy Chief of Support Services. On behalf of Chief McLean, it's a pleasure to be here. Before I start, again, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to John. You've been nothing but a friend to us, and thank you for everything you've done. Enjoy your retirement. On a more tragic note, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the tragic police shootings across Canada in recent weeks. In the past month, sadly, we had officers attend 3 funeral services for fallen officers. In Mississauga, for the Ontario Provincial Police Officer who was fatally struck by a vehicle on June 9th. In Etobicoke, for the funeral of Toronto police officer, a member of the Emergency Task Force, who was fatally shot on June 11th when carrying out a high-risk search warrant. And in Montreal, for an officer who was killed on June 22nd in the line of duty when responding to a weapons complaint. Our thoughts are with the fallen officers, their loved ones, and our police family across the country. These tragedies weigh heavily on our officers within our own organization, and we encourage our members to reach out for support if needed. Moving on to recruitment, I'm excited to share that tomorrow afternoon we will host a graduation ceremony for 37 cadets for the 2026 Police Science Program. This will be a proud day for our cadets, their families, and our entire organization. We also look forward to seeing all the members here to attend that ceremony. In terms of ongoing recruitment, as the chief mentioned in the last meeting, we are still actually working hard on the 2027 Police Science Program, and we're finishing up with our interview phase, and we're meeting some great candidates for our next class that will begin in the fall. We also continue efforts to attract experienced police officers. On July 6th, Chief McLean swore in Constable Elliot Bozano from Saskatchewan, where he was a member with the RCMP for approximately 3.5 years. I'll move on to highlighting some of our major files and investigations that are happening since our last meeting. On June 10th, we hosted a media availability to discuss the growing use of imitation firearms by youth, including BB guns and airsoft guns. Recently seized weapons that closely resemble real firearms were on display, and Staff Sergeant Nick Pepler from our Special Enforcement Section highlighted the challenges these items pose for public safety and law enforcement. On June 23rd at approximately 9:20 a.m., we responded to a report of a shooting in the 3300 block of St. Andrew Avenue in Halifax. Officers located a 25-year-old man suffering from gunshot wounds and provided life-saving measures until he was transported to the hospital by EHS. The victim was treated in hospital and released. A 46-year-old woman was charged with attempted murder. On June 26th, the city's first homicide occurred this year. We responded to a report of a shooting on Leahy Road in Dartmouth. When officers arrived on scene, they located a man who had been shot. Our victim, 39 years old, Thomas Jr. Downey, was pronounced deceased at the scene. The Nova Scotia Medical Examiner's Service conducted an autopsy and confirmed the man's manner of death to be a homicide. Investigators do not believe this is a random incident. An investigation by the Major Crime Unit of the Integrated Criminal Investigation Division is ongoing. Our thoughts go to the loved ones of Mr. Downey at this difficult time. On July 4th, HRP began an investigation into a hate incident that garnered significant attention when a video was shared online. It was reported that a man was yelling racially offensive language at a family in the store and then assaulted another customer. 2 days later, on July 9th, with assistance of the RCMP Halifax Regional Detachment, a 37-year-old man was arrested at the residence of Port Dufferin. The man appeared in Halifax Provincial Court, and he faced a number of charges. Some of the charges are public incitement of hatred, assault, uttering threats to cause bodily harm or death, ×2, mischief, resist peace officer, and possession of a weapon dangerous to public. We want to tell everyone when, let the public know if you find yourself exposed to behavior of this offensive, threatening, intimidating manner, please report it to the police. Even if the investigation does not find criminal wrongdoing, it's important that we record these incidents. Crimes and incident motivated by hate, we take it very seriously. Moving on to the traffic update. For the month of June, for motor vehicle violations, HRP officers issued 983 summary offense tickets, including 168 for driving without insurance, 158 for failing to display up-to-date plates, 70 for speeding, and 2 for stunning. In relation to impaired driving, there was 22 charges laid for impaired operation of a motor vehicle and 12 suspensions issued. Last month, there were also 122 calls of service to report suspected impaired driving and 45 investigations into impaired driving. To date, there have been 22 charges laid for impaired operations and 12 suspensions issued. And this month's proactive road safety theme focuses on construction zone safety, an opportunity to remind everyone to drive safe, slow down in construction zones. I'll now share the most up-to-date firearm stats for this year. To date, there have been 14 shooting incidents, which include the homicide on June 26 and 418 firearms seized. On our intimate partner violence stats, it has come to our attention that there was an issue with a number that we reported back to you, the board, previously this year. We take this very seriously, and we want to assure the board that we are working to improve the process to track intimate partner violence cases. In the fall, we will provide more fulsome information and update you at that particular time. In my last community update on June the 4th, I had the pleasure actually to join our new graduates of our HRP 2026 youth program. And I took the opportunity to thank them for all the work that they do and civic engagement and focus on public safety. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Any questions for the chiefs? Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that Councillor Hinch and I have one of our colleagues in the room, Councillor Daigle Gammon from District 1, and a strong supporter of the RCMP folks there, by all means. And obviously, our bond is the our Cape Breton connection, just like you, Chief Superintendent, right? So, Kathy, good to see you here in the room. Chief Superintendent, thank you very much for your service, sir. Not only to our community, but across the country and every place that you've been. It's been an honor working with you. I'm envious to hear that you're retiring to go do another Ironman. So, sir, all the best to you. And what a guy. I mean, he's leaving God's country because his family is somewhere else. So we understand that decision, sir. Thank you for your service. I do have questions. It's interesting. I hear, Chief Superintendent, about the work, your proactive patrol work, the results it produces. That's where you find out about drugs and guns and impairment and all that. And I know Deputy Chief HRP has been increasing those numbers. I didn't hear that in your report, but when we talk to our residents, that's what our residents want. They want to see the checkpoints. I mean, that used to be such a much more common occurrence in our communities, those checkpoints, and it leads to things that the Chief Superintendent talked about. So I'm wondering, Deputy Chief, you didn't report that. Is that still going on, or how do you decide when you do that? I know when you identify, problem areas that it may occur, but do we have a strategy to see more of those checkpoint type of operations?
Thank you for asking to the chair, to board member here. Yes, we continuously do checks within our communities. Our officers are day and night doing checks, and the numbers have increased. Unfortunately, I don't have them here today with me, but we are still out in the community doing checks.
Yeah, I'm wondering for future events, Mr. Chair, we just, give some examples. We did, I've seen it in my community in previous months, on Waverly Road. We've seen the checkpoints, and it's backed traffic up in a good way, right? And our community wants that. So I just think reporting on that and what that leads to, I think that'll be helpful, similar to what we heard from the Chief Superintendent. And just staying one more, if I may, as a follow-up, Deputy Chief, you alluded to the intimate partner violence numbers issues. Could you elaborate to that? So were the numbers that you've given to us incorrect, or as much as you can, share with us, what do you mean by that?
So I don't have much information today to share. We will in the near future to share a little bit more information regarding this, but it came to our attention that some of the numbers were a little off.
Okay,
And we're obviously working through this. We're now looking to see why exactly why that happened, and we will share more information in the future.
okay. Really important. I think it's important that we hear those numbers. We didn't always hear these numbers. It's important. It is a crisis in our community. And so the more that we hear about it, and I appreciate you acknowledging the numbers are incorrect and look forward to those more accurate numbers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bezic-Escalera.
Thanks, Chair. Chief Superintendent, my personal congratulations on your career as well, and thanks for the short time that we've had a chance to work together, and we'll chat offline as well, I think. Two things. So one for you, Chief Superintendent, you mentioned the traffic stops. So 1274 during the reporting period, up 528. I do keep track in each meeting. So you mentioned I missed the last meeting, so my numbers go back to March now. So 1150 in March and 1381 in January. So I'm glad to see the consistency in the numbers being around that 1,000, 1,300 range there. But when you said that they were up 528 from the previous report, it implies that they had dropped at the meeting that I wasn't here. So I'm wondering if there was a change in staffing or something that might be of interest. Over.
Okay. Through the chair to the commissioner, thank you very much. I appreciate the acknowledgement. That 528 was based on the same time period, 2025.
Okay.
Not the previous
Not
month.
the previous. Okay,
So
understood.
compared it to the same time previous year.
Okay, so we are consistent in the last 5 months, it sounds like.
Yes.
And an improvement over 2025. Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. Thank you. In a similar vein, Deputy Chief, I've been looking at the numbers as well for HRP. So 983 tickets. In April, the chief said 1240. And the context at the time was that he had mentioned the traffic unit was then fully staffed back in April, which accounted for the improvement from the previous months prior to April of around 700 to 900. So we seem to have gone down a bit. And similar question to the chief superintendent, was there a staffing change or something that might account for the change in numbers there?
Through the chair to the commissioner, I really don't have an answer for that. What I can say, the numbers within our traffic unit hasn't changed.
Okay.
But things could be different in terms of vacation and all those things, right?
Okay. Yeah. I think Commissioner Mancini's point about tracking these numbers is a good one, and I think I'll maybe not consider this a formal notice of motion, but I think I'm going to make a motion at some point to have a formal tally so we can, not just off the side of my table of my laptop here keeping the numbers, but have a sense, year over year, what does this look like? And also have this number of, track the number of tickets and stops against injuries, collisions, pedestrian deaths, that sort of thing, so we can get a sense of where we're at with this. Of course, enforcement is only one part of the safety thing here, safety question. And checkpoints are a big part of it too. At the same time as checkpoints, the concept of 15-minute policing is important too. The idea that a short intervention of 15 minutes at any given intersection outside of a formal checkpoint can be enough to change behaviors in the community in a sustainable way, based on some previous data that I think mentioned in another meeting. So thank you both for that update. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. We did explore at one point, I remember Mr. Bates and myself were looking at possible written submissions from the chief reports, but we looked and felt that was not dynamic enough as how information changed. But I do like the idea of capturing this data, which, on a recurring basis, so we can go back and look at trends quite easily without having to do it off the side of our desk. It's a great idea. Commissioner Hinch.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. With the intimate partner violence that you talked about, 133 files, did you say? And then, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that 25 of those files have been are they cleared up, or I was trying to understand that. Sorry? Sorry.
My apologies. It's 25 that are deemed high risk of the totality of the 133.
Deemed high risk. So
Yes.
Okay, all right, sorry, I didn't understand that quite well. Again, I would like to also say, congratulations and thank you for all that you do as well, and you'll truly be missed. Deputy, trying to get all the acronyms right. I was hoping to touch a little bit on the incident that happened just recently, the swatting. Can you give me a little more information on that, or not so much high level information, but how you guys address that, and do you foresee that happening more in the future? Is this something that you think that's going to be more prevalent in Halifax or Canada altogether?
Yeah, so our officers responded to you, Chair, the Commissioner, to the Chair. Chair, I'm sorry. Our officers responded overnight to this particular call. They attended, found it obviously that it was an incident of swatting, but we got Halifax Transit involved, obviously. It was more of a shelter for the members because it was in their apartment building. And yeah, these type of things can happen. They've been happening throughout, obviously, the country, from what I've been seeing. And we obviously, it ties up a lot of our resources within the organization and the RCMP. And I thank the RCMP for helping us also on that particular night. But, we don't want these kind of things to happen. And we obviously did a media release to let the public know that these type of things we don't want these things to happen. And if they were, to let us know, we would investigate it. So we still are looking obviously into this. It's an ongoing investigation at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I wouldn't mind asking a question about the new Traffic Safety Act. So that got passed in 2025. I think it comes into play in 2026. I don't know if there's a specific date, month. I'm not quite sure, but in there is the number of elements, including the modernization of technology. So new laws to allow things like photo radar, red stop cameras or red light cameras and things like that. Do the two services have plans to adopt some of those technologies now that the new laws have been put in place at this time?
Jump in on that.
In response to your question, Chair, the technology exists and is used, extensively in any other provinces. So it would be it's a matter of, as we're upfitting our cars, to account and install the proper equipment, which works quite well.
I'm just wondering more so, I guess, about the unmanned technologies like photo radar, which our citizens obviously haven't been experienced to because the law never allowed it. Before technology like that comes into play, would there be any media campaign that, or is there a date in mind when that technology may come into play? Is there going to be an awareness campaign for the public accompanying that?
I don't know when it's going to come in play, but obviously it would be awareness, a piece that we would do, obviously, to the public to let them know.
I wonder if at some point we should have more so.
I wonder if I could just jump in on that. Mr.
Sure.
Chair. Let me jump in on the politics side of this and be quite clear. So my understanding, we talked to our colleagues from the province, we had a minister actually speak to us and tell us that it's not a priority right now. And so as much as we've been pushing, I see my colleague in the room and across the hall, we've been asking, you folks know, but policing and operations know about the complaints about speeding. So we've been asking for a long, long time to please give us the permission to use speed radar and red light cameras. Many municipalities and provinces will use it. It was passed in the most recent Traffic Safety Act. There has to be some changes. For example, getting too much in the weeds. Right now, a picture is taken. Our legislation is, if I understand this correctly, Bill will correct me, is that it's typically the person driving, but with us in Nova Scotia, it would be the vehicle. So if you're driving and you're caught speeding, it would be the vehicle that gets the ticket. So all those logistics have to be worked out, but politically, it doesn't seem to be a priority for the province of Nova Scotia. So I ask, and if there's reporters in the room and people, millions watching at home today, reach out to your MLA, because we're prepared as a municipality to proceed. We want it. And I think police would want it also. It is proven. There are provinces in Ontario, the premier is not a fan of it, and he started pulling them off the roads. Other provinces we talked to, it's been very effective and proven. I believe the majority of our residents want it because they want the issue of speeding addressed, but it's political right now. So, they're ready to go. Mr. Chair, we as a municipality are ready to go once we give them the thumbs up. But now politics is involved, and that's the problem. I don't know if Commissioner Moore, you have anything to add to it. You were probably more respectful than I just was, but I don't mean any disrespect. It's a frustration for us.
The Commissioner is correct. At present, there's not an ability to tick. You need to identify the driver, quite frankly, and not be able to the vehicle. So that would be one of the provisions. I'm just going back through some. There's been, obviously, as you would know, a lot of discussion at council with our traffic people in relation to this piece. So my understanding is that we are potentially looking at some pilots when this comes into play. I don't have any details on that, but you are correct. There are places that are installing, and there are places that are taking cameras out across the country. So, and sometimes we have citizens taking them with themselves.
And if I just may add to that, our intention is, when the time comes, and hopefully it does come, is the revenue that is generated from that goes back into traffic safety, directly back into traffic safety. So there is a claim out there, it's a money grab. Well, it's not a money grab. We're trying to get people to slow down. And when we do collect money, it goes directly back into traffic safety. That's our intention. But yet we need another order of government to do their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions for our chiefs? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to 10.2, Community Safety Update. Rachel Boehm, Executive Director of Community Safety. Rachel, would you like to share some updates on what's going on?
Sure, I will. As of July 9, updating on our homelessness numbers, we have 2 designated encampments with 22 tents and 3 trailers at the Dartmouth site, and 11 tents, in total at Barrington Greenway. Promising data so far. Generally, July and August, we see a significant bump in unsheltered homelessness, and we have not seen the significant bump that we had seen in previous summers. Summer's not over, but early days, it's looking positive. Our team, now that the encampments, the designated encampment numbers are smaller, we're having more time to respond to some of the other historic undesignated sites that have caused issues. For instance, there was a fairly long-term encampment in the Macintosh Run community trail, and we were able to do a very significant large cleanup there. And as well, we responded to a longstanding encampment that has been around the Bancroft Lane site off Windmill Road. And we took a similar approach we take to closing designated encampments. And through these outreach efforts, we were able to connect many of the individuals living in those spaces with alternative accommodation. And we're currently not aware of any tents remaining at that site. It'll certainly, it was a long established undesignated encampment, so it'll require ongoing attention, but that went very smoothly. Last year between, I wanted to share some numbers first about the past quarter in terms of our homeless coordinator work. We connected 29 individuals with indoor shelter and 14 with housing. So we track these numbers and report them now on a quarterly basis. So that's significant. It does show that there is some constant churn where people are living outdoors. We have about 50 people living outdoors, and that isn't a static number. So people are moving into housing and shelter and sometimes then being discharged back to unsheltered homelessness. And that remains one of the challenges. Last fall, we did conduct a lived experience survey with 48 individuals to try to better understand the factors contributing to people remaining outside, especially as indoor opportunities increase. And so a result of that survey, which was a partnership between Shelter Nova Scotia and HRM homelessness staff, they interviewed 87 individuals, and participants described significant hardship associated with unsheltered homelessness, including exposure to violence, theft, extreme weather, food insecurity, and declining in physical and mental health. At the same time, many identified reasons they do not access existing indoor shelter options, including concerns related to privacy, safety, restrictive rules, separation from partners or pets, and lack of secure storage. A consistent theme through the survey was the importance of privacy, autonomy, dignity, and choice. And importantly, 87% of participants indicated they would accept housing if it met most of their needs, reinforcing that unsheltered homelessness is not primarily driven by refusal of services. The findings highlight a mismatch between available shelter and housing options and the needs identified by participants. While individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness face significant risk and hardships outdoors, many shelter models are viewed as insufficient in providing privacy, safety, stability, and autonomy. So we'll continue to share these findings and use them to inform our work. As we now have adopted an assertive housing outreach approach, understanding the barriers is crucial, and then applying those on an individual level. Moving on to some other updates from community safety. So we've been significantly engaged over the last half year with the North End community about concerns in acute safety concerns in their neighborhoods. The issues relate to crime, open substance use, unsafe needle disposal, and barriers to safe access to public spaces such as parks, sidewalks, splash pads, the library, and bus shelters. We've had several meetings. We've attended town hall that Councillor Hinch organized, and we've decided to take a more structured approach to community safety in the North End that fully engages the community in identifying issues and potential solutions, and to build, as we work with the North End, to build a potential scalable model that we could then apply to other neighborhoods experiencing similar problems. So we are working together with the North End Community Health Center Open Table Group to organize a steering committee for this work, and then multiple forms of community engagement will be employed to gather the input and engagement of the community, and then being able to develop a multi-year action plan that can be monitored and evaluated over time, and then hopefully go on to create a set of resources that can be scaled and spread throughout the municipality. Finally, navigating the criminal justice system can be a daunting task for any Nova Scotians, but especially those facing language barriers or complex systems like immigration law. With the support of community safety, as well as HRM's diversity and inclusion team, and thanks to funding from Public Safety Canada's Building Safer Communities Fund, the Legal Information Society of Nova Scotia is closing the gap for newcomers and others with the launch of an essential plain language digital library of resources about the criminal justice system. The digital library includes plain language, printable, and video resources in 9 languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Hindi, Persian, Somali, Spanish, and Ukrainian. There's a launch of this new set of resources on July 21 at City Hall, and everyone's invited at 1 p.m. Reach out if you'd like more information. That concludes my update for today.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions for Rachel? Commissioner Hinch?
Rachel, thank you. Thank you for all that you guys are doing, because I do see the numbers coming down when it comes to the encampments and whatnot. So I thank you guys for all that you're doing there. My question is with regards to the shelters, where we have people that are still not willing to go to them because of safety concerns and things of that nature. Are we talking directly with the shelters with regards to those issues, and if there's anything that can be addressed to support or to maybe have more support to make it more safer, to make it more, more inviting per se, instead of, folks just continue to sleep in those encampments or on the streets or anything.
Through the chair to the commissioner, I want to be careful. I think the shelters are doing their very best.
I believe they are.
During
for
a
sure.
housing and
Yes.
affordability crisis, and they are funded to provide certain services.
Yeah.
So importantly, we share this information as well with the funders, and the Nova Scotia Department of Opportunities and Social Development is supportive of this research. The staff who carried out the research is a team actually funded by the province.
Mhm.
And together we work very closely, and we're embracing how this information can further advance our shared aspiration to functional zero homelessness.
Mhm.
So a key issue is shelters need to see flow. They need to see flow out to permanent housing for them to really be able to work with people in a way that leads to permanent housing and to increase safety and security within their own facilities. They do need that flow, because the longer people stay in shelter, the more difficult. It's not conducive to a permanent way of living.
Exactly.
And it is really essentially a form of institutionalization when people stay too long in shelters. So I just want to highlight that I think that's a key issue.
Mhm.
And the shelters kind of are dealing with the need in the moment. And then when people stay and start living in shelter for months on end, it can, or even years, it can create different challenges. I think, what the research speaks to is there's still a bit of a gap in terms of some of the specialized needs, like maybe not enough units that tolerate pets, not enough couples units.
Mhm.
Mind you, this research is about a year old now,
Yes.
and we're now tracking with data all of our interactions with people.
Mhm.
So hopefully we'll get, we are matching people to appropriate options as they do open up. But it does give us that awareness that pets and partners are still identifying as finding it more difficult. There are units that address those needs,
Right.
but potentially not the right matching number yet.
So happy to see that we did a lived experience program. So how did that come about to be? Can you tell me more about that? Because it's the first I'm hearing of that.
So the lived experience survey took place a year ago in the fall of 2025,
Okay.
when we still had significantly more encampments.
Yes.
It took a while to carry. These were like one-on-one interviews. And I'm happy I'll share the report through to the BOPC after this meeting, so that
Okay,
people
great.
can review it.
Yeah.
But essentially, we were dealing with a lot of people living in the community, not always responding to indoor shelter options, and we wanted to understand, to better understand what the needs of people living unsheltered were, and what the barriers were to them accepting indoor shelter and connections to housing.
Mm-hmm. And I also need to say thank you for, coming to my community and supporting us and trying to help us deal with some of the issues that we're dealing with on a regular basis. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bezic-Escalar.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Rachel, for the report. And like Commissioner Hinch said, I have seen an improvement as well over time with in terms of the numbers and at least the visible the visible unhoused in the former encampments. I walk through Cogswell Park every day on my commute to work, and that was a former site that had been closed, and so that has been that has improved since that. And I also note that just the other day, I did find a few like open needles on the boardwalk there and reported to 311. And then within about an hour, someone had called me to confirm where it was, and they had cleaned that up. So so I think the community safety angle is working very well there. I just wanted to ask a question about the stats. You mentioned that there were 14 set up with housing last quarter, and that one of the and you also highlighted that the number of unhoused is revolving, that there are people who come in and out, particularly when they are in shelter and come out. The ones who are set up with housing, has that worked out? Like, are we seeing that the ones who are set up with housing are able to stay in housing, or are we finding that there are additional services that are needed for those who are set up with housing that we might need to think about?
Through the chair to the commissioner, I don't have the data on people who move on to housing. It is a bit of a data gap, but we track the homelessness information system tracks people through homelessness. So I wouldn't have access to that.
Okay.
We do have more data on people actually going into indoor temporary shelter and then back to unsheltered. And that still does occur frequently.
Okay, thanks for that. My other last question is about the care team and overdoses and if they're seeing stuff. So a few weeks ago, Moncton was having a big issue with medetomidine being added or being seen in street drugs there. I hadn't seen as much reporting here, and through the grapevine and the ER and stuff, I hadn't seen as much of that either. So I'm wondering if the care team or others in the community safety team might have been seeing something along those lines too. I'm just picturing that the supply is probably the same or similar to the one in Moncton, that we might be having the issues here. I just hadn't seen as much of it here yet. Well,
We haven't seen, I've spoken to our team. We haven't seen the kind of increases that they are seeing in Moncton Amherst area.
okay.
But we have, shared the information widely so that we could be ready if there's an increased need.
Okay.
Fortunately, so far, that particular issue hasn't come up here. It's very tragic, and my heart goes out to social services and community workers in that area who are just seeing people frequently overdose and die, and it takes a toll on the system. So
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rachel, thanks very much. First of all, thank you to you and your team. You alluded to in your presentation about the Bancroft situation, which is in District 6. Very good response. I am assuming those folks have found a safer place to be. Great for the community. It's a combination of business and residential area, so everybody's happy with that response. So thank you to the team. Make sure you pass that on, please. You mentioned in your presentation that we typically see a significant bump each year with undesignated tents or encampments growing, but we're not seeing it this year as much. And yes, it is still early into the summer. Any indication why? I don't want to make any assumptions here, but why are we seeing that same bump?
through the chair to the commissioner, I really don't have a data-informed answer to that, so it would be conjecture, really.
Okay.
It could speak to over time, the increase, the province has invested in temporary and shelter housing, and that gradually is having an impact, and people are, again, now with HRM taking an assertive housing approach, also an outreach team dedicated by the province through Shelter Nova Scotia to making those housing connections. Having the numbers drop overall allow us to have a very individualized approach,
Right.
us and other outreach workers. So, getting down to meeting people one-on-one and figuring out what the barriers are, which is harder to do when the numbers are in the
Uh-huh.
hundreds. So that's, again, not based on data, but what my sense is might be contributing.
It's interesting when we speak to our colleagues across the country, and having one person homeless is one too many. And we do get the complaints, and it's tough with these, even the designated encampments near communities. Right here in Dartmouth, we've had our share over the years. But when you look across the country, I mean, we're in good shape in comparison, right? I mean, you had colleagues come back from a conference in Edmonton, and the stories they told me about what they saw on the streets there, Ottawa, Vancouver, the list goes on and on. We're doing, I think, a combined good work, the municipality and the province, and still more work to be had, and we cannot relax. But it's good to see that we're in much better shape than we have been. And not that it's a competition, but we're doing better than many cities across the country. So to everyone involved, that's good work. We need to keep at it, though. Thank you, Rachel.
Commissioner Hinch.
So Rachel, I'm going to be a little confrontational a bit. So have we heard anything with regards to the bridge? I knew I was told there was a timeline on that. Whether it's going to be closing, if it's not going to be closing, do we have any information on the bridge? I know the form's going to be closing soon. Are we looking at those, to make sure that we can service people or help people, and when the time comes to help them to move on? I'm just wondering if there's any updates with regards to the bridge. I know about the form, but the bridge itself. You hear whispers, but it may be just, maybe just something that's not true. Just wondering.
Through the chair to the commissioner, it's really, wouldn't want to speak for the province on the plans for the bridge, but there is, as you said, there is a timeline on that.
Mhm.
I think the forum is more, it's pending in a shorter time frame. So the focus right now is on a plan for the forum,
Mhm.
and a group is underway to do some planning around that. The idea would be not to necessarily replace a large shelter, but work on ensuring flow out of the forum over a longer time period to reduce the numbers. And potentially a smaller shelter will still need to be replace the forum, but with the current housing situation, I do believe that there could be there are some vacancies in the supportive housing environment in the HRM.
Mhm.
So it is hoped that the numbers can be dropped over time leading up to the date where that shelter will need to be vacated, so as not to have to replicate another 90-bed shelter in the peninsula, which would be very difficult.
Yeah.
And I imagine that a similar process will need to happen for the bridge, although I'm less aware of the timeline for that, so I can't speak to it.
Now that St. Pat's Church is up for sale, is the shelter still there? That shelter is
That work will be folded into the forum work.
the form work as well? All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Rachel, I did hear you say that there was a mismatch, that the survey helped inform that there was a mismatch between the characteristics of the shelters and the requirements of some of the potential residents. And then I think I heard a little bit later you'd mentioned two, one of which was pets and partners. Were those the two primary things that were not well met by the current characteristics of shelters?
It was also privacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from your informed position, are there a couple of things that you would, if you had the ability to do, had the funding to do to help with these shelters that could improve the capability to support these other unmet needs? What would those be?
I would advocate for more ability to have people living unsheltered be able to move directly to permanent housing. So given the affordability and housing crisis, it isn't a reality that people are able to be connected to a permanent housing option. Individuals with more barriers who are choosing, like, they just don't want to live in a shelter environment, which is, I think all of us can have empathy for that, because it is not a private environment. There are a lot of rules that impact your daily life about comings and goings and whether you can have visitors and friends, socialize with your friends, and what are you going to do during the day. Not that all shelters require people to leave, but some do require you to be out during the day. So there's so many factors. The really good thing would be for the public geared to income housing to continue to increase so that when we're working with these 50 people who remain in tents, who have they really know what they want, and they want a home, which is what we all deserve. They don't want to live in a shelter in a bunk bed with other people, and they're choosing, some of them are choosing just because of that. They're choosing to live outside until they get their own place. And so, I hope more and more that we can help them connect to a home, and that they might even avoid this step of shelter. But that's aspirational, but that's where we need to go.
Thank you very much for that. All right, we'll move on to 10.3, 10.3.1, and we're going to receive a verbal update on the Nova Scotia Minister of Justice directive to all municipal police agencies and the RCMP regarding operational communications. And I believe Chief Superintendent Duff is going to give us a verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. The directive received had very limited impact on us, particularly we have an in-place reporting matrix now that we follow in respect to everything contained within the list that we report on to our divisional criminal operations at this point in time. Further reporting to the province is done from that location now. So from our perspective, really no impact on our operations.
Deputy Chief, was there anything additional you wanted to share from HRP's perspective?
Thanks, Chair. Not much to share, only that it's no impact on us. We will be doing it, and it's very limited impact on the organization.
Very good. Any questions from any of the commissioners about that? All right. Thank you very much for the update. We'll move on to 10.3.2, which is the body-worn camera policy. Or BOPC policy on body-worn cameras. And could I ask for a commissioner to put the motion on the floor?
I'll do that.
Commissioner Mancini, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Put the following motion on the floor that the Board of Police Commissioners for Halifax Regional Municipality adopt in principle, subject to a period of public comment, the policy entitled Body-Worn Cameras for Inclusion in the Board of Police Commissioners Policy Manual, as outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report dated June 15, 2026. So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Hinch, for seconding the motion. We'll allow all the commissioners to ask any questions of it, but perhaps before that, our policing policy strategist, Mr. Bates, can share some comments on this policy, the process, and then maybe as well, Mr. Bates, you could comment about the idea, just to remind us all about the period of public comment, what sort of time frame that is. Anytime you're ready, Mr. Bates.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Josh Bates, Policing Policy Strategist. So following budget allocation from Regional Council, the HRP plans to deploy body-worn cameras by early 2027. The policy before you today provides direction to HRP, with the RCMP following national policies. The board policy is broadly aligned with the RCMP's national policy, and the full deployment of body-worn cameras to HRD's general duty members was completed in March 2025. So stepping back a little bit, the introduction of body-worn cameras into policing has become increasingly prevalent across Canada and in fact around the world. Factors driving this uptake include improving officer and civilian behavior, improving public perceptions of police, and enhancing evidence collection for prosecution. Body-worn cameras also provide transparency that has the potential to strengthen community-police relations. Although these are desired outcomes of body-worn cameras, they are not foregone conclusions. These objectives are most likely to be achieved alongside a clear governance framework grounded in evidence-based practices, which is what this policy is attempting to achieve. The proposed policy was developed in collaboration with HRP and HRD and an informal board working group, and is based on a literature review of policies from other jurisdictions, including the proposed body-worn camera policy framework prepared by the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. So I'd like to thank you, Chair O'Malley, and Commissioners Carter and Mancini for their participation in the working group. I'd also like to thank HRP and HRD staff, alongside with staff in Access and Privacy and IT for their ongoing collaboration. So about the policy itself, specifically, the policy provides direction to the chief to produce an HRP policy that includes training requirements for body-worn camera users, expectations around activation and deactivation, privacy considerations, including the requirement for privacy impact assessment to be conducted, protocols for the proper safeguarding of footage, and appropriate notification to the board in the event of a privacy breach, protocols around video viewing, including whether notes must be written by body-worn camera users prior to viewing recordings, the development of a comprehensive security program to protect body-worn camera recordings, requirements for video disclosure and access, a prohibition of body-worn camera use for biometric analysis and surveillance purposes, which aligns with the RCMP, and information regarding body-worn cameras that must be made publicly available. The proposed policy also includes annual reporting requirements for the chief, including findings of any reviews conducted, the number of reported privacy breaches, and incidents of non-compliance. Regarding that period of public comment, so the policy, if it's adopted today in principle, it will be posted on our website for a period of 2 weeks. Members of the public would be invited to email bopc@halifax.ca with their comments regarding the policy. So I'd be happy to take any of your questions. And I also know that our Chief Privacy Officer, Amy Tomey, is here as well to help answer any questions related to access and privacy.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Any commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Mancini.
Maybe just some observations and maybe one question for Amy at the end. Josh, thanks for that work, for bringing us together. It's interesting. Body-worn cameras, we saw the opposition from some folks on it. That's been very clear with the defund the police approach. In their report, they didn't want to see body-worn cameras. We've seen the decision from the previous prime minister that the RCMP would have body-worn cameras, which they now do. We see what's happening in the States just recently with shootings with ICE, for example, and the president saying that initially officers would not have body-worn cameras, and now they're starting to come back and change. We see in the USA, all you have to do is go to your social media feed every day, and you'll see police footage. And that's some of the things that we talked about at great lengths, making sure that's not happening in our environment, right? That's key, that we protect that. I'm sure we all have incidents over the last number of years that have happened in HRM that we've said to ourselves, man, I wish we would have had, the officers would have had body-worn cameras, and that would address either a protection of the officer or protection of the citizen, right? And so, you look at the police operations around North America, and the ones that have it down properly have good, strong policy. And so I think that's where we are. HRP has their own policy. This is our policy that hopefully aligns, as Josh said, with HRP. I guess the question I have is for Amy, because we had the conversation. We have to be very careful. Our policy is not about operational stuff, right? That's at the high level. But, a lot of the research that I did and some of the conversation we had, it was around privacy, especially with, an investigation of a sexual assault. And so when you're dealing with sexual assault investigation and officers, they're dealing with the victim, the role of that camera, that body-worn camera. Some jurisdictions, they would have, they announce that they have body-worn camera. They turn off the camera itself, maybe just use the audio. I don't know, Amy, if you've touched that piece at all, if there's anything you can share. Again, not our job to dictate to HRP how that's operational stuff, but it's an issue that for me kind of stood out and said, we got to make sure we do that piece right. A lot of the reports from both the chief and chief superintendent will talk about sexual assaults or interdepartmental violence that are not reported. And so the last thing I want to see that the body-worn camera causes a victim not to report that crime. So I don't know, Amy, if you have any points on that you want to share.
Yeah, Amy, please, I'll introduce Amy Tomey. She's the Chief Privacy Officer for HRM. She was helped the board build the policy that's in place today. And if she's willing and amenable to do a little impromptu Q&A, we would be grateful for that. Thank you, Amy.
Certainly, thank you. And through the chair to the commissioner, these are things that we will be addressing through the privacy impact assessment and through the work that we're doing with our colleagues at HRP. So these are things that we're considering because there is special consideration to those types of situations, as well as in certain healthcare settings. So there's a number of things, and fortunately, we're not the first jurisdiction to do this. So we're learning and leveraging what other municipalities across the country are doing, and as well as our colleagues federally. So that is definitely something that we're considering and will be incorporated into the policies
Yep, glad to hear
and
that.
the operational pieces.
Perfect, glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Amy, for the impromptu visit. Commissioner Bezic-Escalante.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Josh, for the work on this, and to the two commissioners for their work on the working group here. I looked through the policy, and it makes good sense to me. As Commissioner Mancini said, there was perhaps to some a surprising amount of opposition to the concept of body-worn cameras. The Street Checks report in 2019 didn't really speak to it specifically. It mentioned that there were some respondents who supported it in principle, but the 2022 defund report was quite clearly against it on the basis that one, the data didn't show what in their view an improvement in behavior and in the outcome of interactions, that sort of thing. And it also raised the same privacy concerns that were mentioned earlier. But I'm satisfied that the other things that we have done besides this policy, such as the use of force policy, the data collection policies, and what we just heard now about the privacy review, that those concerns that came up in the Street Check, in the defund report are addressed. So I think I would be comfortable with going ahead on this. I think those issues have been well thought of and addressed. So, thank you.
Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I'm pretty much aligned with both of my colleagues here. My main concern was the privacy aspect of it, and how that looks, especially with intimate partner intimate partner abuse, violent cases, and things of that nature. Also, you see online what's going on there on Netflix, even. Like, these are things that are coming up, and these are things that I do not want to see
Right.
in our municipality. So I'll accept them as it is going forward. I know we're going to continue to have the conversation on these, and things are going to come up, and then as they come up and arise, we're going to address them accordingly. So, but yes, I thank you, Josh, for all that you do, and I look forward to seeing more. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, Josh wanted to thank you personally. I know there's a lot of work that went into this, and thank you to our two chiefs and their staff who helped work through this, and Commissioner Moore as well, bringing his always valued insight. We're most grateful. I think this is a really positive step. I look forward to seeing the technology in place. It's going to benefit in many, many ways. So we're looking forward to it, as long as the safeguards are in place, and we don't end up like they do in the United States with having these things on television within an hour, which is crazy.
Yeah.
All right,
Good job,
we
Josh.
have a motion, and we'll call for the question. All
Question.
those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you kindly. All right, we'll move on to 10.3.3, and it looks like Mr. Bates is going to be up again. So this is the BOPC policy on community engagement and outreach. So a new policy for the board. I'd ask first a commissioner to put the motion on the floor. Sure, Commissioner Hinch. 10.3.3.
I move that the Board of Police Commissioners for Halifax Regional Municipality adopt in principle, subject to a period of public comment, the policy entitled Community Engagement and Outreach for Inclusion in the Board of Police Commissioners Policy Manual as outlined in Attachment 1 of the staff report dated June 10th, 2026.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mancini, for seconding that. We'll open things up to Mr. Bates first to give us a little bit of an intro, background, and then we'll again offer time for the commissioners to ask any questions. Mr. Bates.
Thank you again, Chair. So ensuring that police services are delivered in a manner consistent with community values, needs, and expectations is one of the core functions of police boards as outlined in the Police Act. Community engagement is also referenced in Bylaw P100 and Regional Council's strategic plan. Regional Council has also adopted a community engagement strategy, which provides a corporate framework for the effective delivery of community engagement efforts. The board's current policy manual contains 3 separate policies related to community engagement. So if formally adopted, the policy on community engagement and outreach before you today would replace the following policies: communications and community outreach, stakeholder engagement, and community survey to measure trust and confidence. The proposed policy combines these 3 policies into a single policy that meets the board's requirements outlined in the Police Act, reflects the board's intended engagement activities, and ensures alignment with Regional Council's community engagement strategy. Importantly, the proposed policy requests the Commissioner of Public Safety to host at least 1 community roundtable on policing per year outside of the board's regularly scheduled meetings. The purpose of the community roundtable on policing would be to allow members of the board to hear participants' values, needs, and expectations regarding policing and community safety. And participants in this roundtable would be invited to represent a broad spectrum of community organizations. This roundtable would follow the steps outlined in the community engagement strategy, which includes producing what we heard reports, which would then be brought forward to the board. In addition, the proposed policy requires the Chief of HRP and advises the Chief Superintendent of HRD to host regular public engagement activities throughout the year, requires these engagement activities to align with Regional Council's community engagement strategy, including, as I said, the development and circulation of what we heard reports, request the Commissioner of Public Safety and the Executive Director of Community Safety to inform the board of any public engagement activities that may be relevant to the board, and formalizes other processes and outlines other responsibilities of board members related to community engagement. So just like the body-worn camera policy, if adopted in principle today, this policy would be posted on the board website for a period of 2 weeks, and members of the community would be invited to provide any feedback to bopc@halifax.ca. Be happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions around the community engagement outreach policy?
I do.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Hinch. Feel free.
Josh, thank you for this report. I'm so happy to see this come forward. I mean, normally when I do my community engagements, I always invite the police because I want them to be engaged. I want them to have conversations with my community. So I am so happy for this. I can't wait to see what the community roundtable looks like. This is a positive thing, and I thank you for bringing this forward. I'm elated because again, our communities, they all want to be engaged. They all want to have the conversation. So I thank you for this so much. So that's all I have to say. I'm just happy.
Thank you. That's fabulous. We'll take happy. And I want to thank Commissioner Moore for his office supporting that the development of that outreach program and structuring that in a way that meets the broader needs. Any other questions, Commissioner Mancini?
I'm wondering on both policies that's going to be posted, if this will pass there on the website, can we share with us and so we can share with our colleagues at council so that we can push it out to our residents? So if a graphic can be created and that way we can say, hey, this is going to be up for 2 weeks. We're looking for your feedback. And each councillor has the ability to get up to thousands of people. So and it's another way of getting people aware of the Board of Police Commission's website too. So that can be shared. On the piece of the community roundtable on policing, I guess the only concern I have is, and look, don't get me wrong, we should be engaging with our communities. How do we make sure that one side of the equation doesn't monopolize the conversation, whether it's pro-police or anti-police? So those are the 2 sides. So how do we make sure one doesn't dominate that, and how do we filter that information out? Because we see, we can see groups get organized, right? And so we see it all the time at council. All of a sudden we get these email campaigns on a particular topic, and all of a sudden we've got thousands of emails coming around in boxes. So we have to put a weighting on that. I personally put a weighting on those kinds of campaigns. But how do we address that type of thing? If one group, one side of our comes out and really gets their opinion across stronger, maybe than another group. How do we manage that?
Okay, no, thank you for the question. And that is, in fact, exactly the reason why we're proposing the Community Roundtable on Policing. So I want to be very clear. So the Community Roundtable on Policing, as proposed in the policy, is an invite-only roundtable,
Only.
right?
Okay, that's key.
We are proposing that we maintain the public feedback portion of our budget process, where any resident of Halifax can come and speak. There are pros and cons to having an open forum
Right.
where anybody can participate. The pro, of
Absolutely.
course, is that anybody can participate.
Yeah, yeah.
The con is that these types of events tend to attract participants who feel very passionately about an issue, either for or against. So the idea behind the Community Roundtable on Policing is to kind of balance out those perspectives to ensure that we are hearing from a broad spectrum, right? And we'll be very public about who is invited. We are imagining the heads of various organizations, so it could be business organizations, community organizations, and organizations that will represent a broad spectrum of views, so that the board is hearing from the community as a whole, not just people who are not only people who are comfortable coming and speaking in front of a room full of people, because that is not for everybody.
Right. That's important. Thank you. And I forgot that it's invited, and we need to make sure we invite all opinions.
Yeah.
And have that balance, so that I think that's a healthy thing to do, and I look forward to that. So, great answer to that question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Bates? Once again, thank you, Mr. Bates, for spearheading and championing this activity. And I do look forward to the community roundtable. It'll be a great. I mean, we learn from other jurisdictions across the country in terms of groups. Maybe you could comment on where we've seen this.
That's a good point. So yeah, I did do a jurisdictional scan, as I do with all policies that I bring forward to this board, and so this is modeled on an initiative in Calgary. It's called the Calgary Policing Summit, and that is an invite-only initiative, and it's been very successful. And at the CAPG meeting, I'll be meeting with my counterparts in Calgary and getting some more feedback on how that initiative is going.
Question. Aye.
We're going to move on to 10.3.4, just to say, in case nobody heard, 10.3.3 was adopted unanimously. We're going to move on to 10.3.4, which is an Integrated Criminal Investigative Division Managerial Review Report. We're going to hear a presentation from Kathy Collette, Senior Policy Advisor, as well as Kara Evans, Coordinator to the Commissioner of Public Safety. So we'll invite them up, and whenever they feel that things are going to be ready to go with the technology, you are good to go. So this is in relation to the report that all the commissioners received, which was, are you going to give a little context to the report and the methodology as well in the presentation?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for,
Pull the mic down, Kathy. Yeah, there you go.
are you making comments on my?
No, I'm in the same category,
Yeah.
Kathy, so I would never comment.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all for having us here today. We're really excited to present the results of this review, which has really occupied us quite significantly since Christmas. So this is an exciting day because this is the culmination of a long-standing project, and we're ready to kind of move on from this one and see all the great actions that can come out of it. So thank you, Chair, for introducing Kara and I. I want to make sure the rest of our working group is recognized here because it was absolutely a collaborative effort. So maybe we'll start with our CMP colleagues, and if you could just kind of stand up or wave when I say your name, then everyone can know who you are. So we have Sergeant Matt Kahn. And Staff Sergeant Jody Allison. Great. From HRP, we have Staff Sergeant Steve McCormick. And back from retirement, we have former Deputy Chief Reed McCombs. So thank you so much for joining us and
How come
bringing
he's
your
the only
wisdom.
guy that was smiling? No, he's retired. That's why. Yes, that's why. Yeah.
We actually have a very brief presentation because you have the report in front of you. We really wanted to, open the floor for questions and just be, available and accountable to, answer any concerns or any clarification that's required from this process. So we will not bore you. We have 6 slides. And so if there's anything that you have to do at 4 o'clock today, don't worry. We will not, we won't go past that time. All right, we can move to the first slide. Can I do it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. This is the first time I've got to control the slides myself for this presentation. Very exciting. So we wanted to start just with a review of the methodology for this project. So we received a mandate letter, and this was also one of the attachments you would have received. And this was a collaborative mandate letter between HRP and RCMP that kind of gave us some direction, some, tasks that, must be done, and then some recommended review areas. So we, referring constantly to that mandate letter, we designed our research methods for this project. And a lot of it was a qualitative research method with significant thematic analysis. So knowing that ICID, Integrated Criminal Investigation Division, was the main subject of our study, we wanted to make sure we heard from the folks there. So we actually ended up doing more than 90 one-on-one interviews. And so that was a really, really great turnout. It shows the passion, it shows the dedication of the folks at that division in, making sure that this is a strong and thriving, division of policing in HRM. So those structured interviews were, a huge bulk of the information that we ended up having to work with. As part of the project, we also did significant document review and analysis. And this was a really interesting process because we had a lot of relevant reports. We had, the new policing standards. We, of course, had the police transformation study, which this is in many ways, responding to or stemming from. We had the Deloitte report from the province. We even went to, the Mass Casualty Commission report and read the chapter on policing. What was interesting about that review was that there wasn't anything quite granular enough that informs the recommendations, but the themes of, interoperability and cooperation and consistency, those were loud and clear. So we made sure we kind of incorporated those into the foundational principles of what we were doing. We, and when I say we, I really should say Matt, did some really significant jurisdictional scanning of other integrated units in the country. I believe that you have access to the attachment that Matt produced. This was a really interesting exercise. There is no other exact system like we have, but we can learn a lot from the other ways in which joint task forces and other organizations operate. And so we certainly drew from those other models that we have out there, and that informed our analysis. And then finally, the way we approached this is we took all of the information we had from those activities and we used that to define our problems. We didn't want to go in there with the assumption that there are problems or the assumption that we knew what those problems were. So really stemming from the information we had before us, we used that to do some problem definition, and then we tried to come up with really specific actionable recommendations that speak to those problems. So you'll notice in the recommendations, nothing is huge or groundbreaking. Some of it really actually feels quite common sense, but we wanted to make sure that what we were suggesting could be acted upon and could actually help support what we heard needed supporting. And then finally, the writing process was a collaborative writing process. I've done a lot of collaborative writing in both my public service and academic careers, and this was by far the most enjoyable collaborative writing experience I've ever had. Maybe you just don't need groupthink. Maybe it was the diversity of the group that made it so enjoyable. But we met many times to review drafts, to validate, to group edit. And the report that you have before you is the product of that 6-person collaboration. So a miracle that we all signed off on it, but it was actually a really positive process. I'll hand it over to my colleague, Kara.
Thank you. So what came out of the report are 2 big, broad theme key issues. So one of them you'll see is ambiguous command structure. So participants consistently identified ambiguity in the leadership at the front of the house, meaning the front of the building of integrated CID building, regarding the decision-making structures. We heard a consistent message that cherry picking would occur based on the needs of the investigations that were taking place, and inconsistencies applied around the application of policies and procedures. We heard that at times RCMP members felt that they felt at conflict in the way that they were tasked and asked to complete work as the process was not aligned with the RCMP. The need for clear, integrated policy and procedures and governance would help reduce and or eliminate the cherry picking and sense of conflict. Many members, primarily RCMP, noted that they felt that they were renting a space in someone else's house. Having ICID develop its own identity rather than operating primarily through the lens of either agency would cultivate a sense of belonging to both agencies. The second theme is HRP specific, and it relates specifically to the HRP employees' experience. The members, their concerns were primarily based around include access to investigative required training, professional development opportunities in areas of interest, resource limitations such as access to vehicles with the proper equipment inside, PPE, radios, and technology. Compared to the RCMP and the impact of, additionally, there was the concern around being compared to the RCMP. And while the impact of seniority-based processes on career progression, while that is in fact a union issue, management should be working with the union to develop a path forward to move away from seniority being a career driver.
So we just want to, for your sake, kind of look at some of the challenges that the project faced. So, whenever you start with a mandate letter, you have a lot of, great ideas. And then as you, roll out the project, certain things come up along the way that make it, kind of go in a direction you might not have anticipated. So we just want to make sure we're kind of outlining those for you and happy to kind of speak to them in the questions at the end. Since we're only 6 slides, we'll just go through and then you can ask us all your questions at the end and we can go back if we need to. So one of the challenges, especially when you are doing like primarily qualitative research, is you have a lot of, first person impressions that you are basing your decisions or your analysis on. That can be conflicting impressions. It's also not always consistent from day to day, like how someone's experiences have been that week, that month, what's going on outside of work can impact their impressions. So we absolutely took that into consideration. We wanted to make sure that we were, validating and valuing the impressions and the experiences of the people we heard from without, taking everything, as kind of fact that didn't need to be kind of looked at in a more holistic manner based on all the impressions of everybody we spoke to. One thing that is important to keep in mind when you're basing analysis on human impression is that there are personality conflicts. There are lots of different kind of competing motivations and interests, and so sometimes when you have 2 agencies involved, if there is a personality conflict between 2 people, that can actually be misinterpreted as conflict between agencies or really any group. Team, division, business unit. So we tried to make sure we kind of left room for that in our understanding that, tension that may have occurred, may be occurring, or may have occurred in the past between individuals is not necessarily tension between agencies. Probably the biggest challenge in meeting all the requests from the mandate letter is that there were no clear standards for evaluation when it comes to doing the file analysis portion. So if you were going to conduct a file analysis, you would look at maybe a few samples or a certain data time period, and you would compare that against the policies that are supposed to be followed or the business processes for that file. We're at a kind of an interesting point right now where a lot of the documented and approved processes for how files are carried out at CID haven't been updated recently and aren't actually the relevant files that are being followed. There are business process documents that have been collaboratively developed by HRP and RCMP members working in those divisions. And we can anticipate they're probably actually being followed very closely because they've been produced by the people who are doing these files, but they're not yet approved. So we kind of took that prompt in the mandate letter to really encourage those processes to be reviewed by management, to go through the approval processes, and then at that time that file analysis should absolutely happen once we know what we're kind of comparing the files against. So that's kind of more of a deferred action from the mandate letter that we support and we would love to see happen and are happy to assist with if that is useful to anyone. And then finally, I mentioned it before in reference to Matt's jurisdictional scan, but Halifax is a unique model. There is no other situation that's set up exactly like the US. So while we can draw on the valuable lessons and the important examples from other jurisdictions, there is no apples to apples comparison for us. So that's just kind of a nuance of, we can't just model what we do after another agency that does the same thing.
So back to some themes. These are the recommendations that came out. Quick and simple. The first section focuses on improving HRP employee experience through greater emphasis on professional development, career planning, training opportunities, and reduced disparities that affect morale. And you can see that in recommendation 5 and 8. The second focuses on strengthening collaboration between agencies at the leadership level. Recommendations in this area include establishing clearer governance structures, improving strategic alignment, creating integrated policies and procedures, and developing a stronger ICID identity that combines both strengths of HRP and RCMP. And you can see that in recommendation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9.
Great. And yeah, just to expand on what my colleague was saying there, there may be a sense as you read the report that this is very like HRP focused. Certainly, some of the challenges or some of the areas for strengthening, focus on HRP. And part of the reason for that is that, the kind of the ratios of staff at CID is, more heavy on HRP. And so there was more of a sense from those members as to, what their experiences were like as organizational members overall. So, our RCMP, project sponsors and our RCMP participants were quick to, remind us that that doesn't mean that everything is perfect and that there are no, organizational issues within the RCMP. They just didn't come out as part of this study, based on what we were actually looking at and the people we were talking to. So this was really, a focus on what it's like at ICID right now in this current moment. And so, we followed the information we received. It certainly wasn't meant to single out one agency over another. And it really wasn't meant to be, valuing or comparing one agency over the other, just to kind of respond to what we heard from the people we spoke to. So from this report, we have highlighted areas for further consideration, and some of these are directly taken from the mandate letter. Some are not. So one of the areas that we've highlighted is around training. We want to make sure that all our folks have consistent and adequate, maybe even beyond adequate levels of training. And HRP is a small organization than RCMP with different sized pockets. And so we just need to make sure that we are being really strategic and intentional in making sure that the people there have the training they need. One of the items that the mandate letter mentioned was around leadership structure within ICID. And we did design a question for our survey and for our interviews that spoke to the structure of leadership within ICID. The responses that we got back were really about what leadership looked like outside of ICID. So at the heads of both organizations or both agencies, really wanting to feel like it was a joint and consistent direction, and that whatever was rolled out within the building was pulling in the same direction with the equal endorsement and commitment of everybody outside of that. And so that is what was behind our recommendation to have that integrated steering committee, which interestingly enough is already spelled out in the very, very brief MOU that we currently have. It does set this up. So this isn't groundbreaking recommendations at all, but we just want to reaffirm the importance of that. And we heard from the folks at ICID that this is very meaningful to them. File review did already speak to that. So once we have our approved and our established business processes, making sure we then go back and do an analysis of files compared to those processes. Finally, workload analysis was, something that emerged as a bit of a tricky consideration for this. Trying to, fully understand what you're doing that workload analysis to support. So whenever you do an analysis of something, you have a research question you're trying to answer, and making sure we had clarity on that research question. So this would be somewhere that there's definitely room to, to continue that study, and making sure that we, are able to get the numbers we need, and that we know what we're collecting them for, and that we're using those to kind of create the right data picture that is useful, not just collecting numbers for the sake of collecting numbers. So with that, happy to open the floor, questions, discussions. I should ask if any of my committee members or my working group members wanted to speak to anything, or are you going to wait and see if questions? Okay, we're going to wait and see if we get questions. And if a question is better answered by one of our colleagues, we will absolutely put them on the spot.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kara. I'll open up the floor to questions, but just a comment. I don't think we actually received the jurisdictional scan document. So if there was anything that you wanted to highlight out of that now that you thought would be, important to share at this time, recognize we haven't seen it. I don't think we have. I don't recall
We
receiving it.
responded to
Yeah.
that. It was an information attachment, so it might not have trickled through the process, but we can absolutely share that with you because Matt did a lot of excellent work and it's
Yeah.
worth looking at. It won't limit the conversation or discussion there.
Yeah, no, we would like to see it. I'm a big supporter of jurisdictional scans, like to know what the rest of the country is doing. Are there any examples across the country which kind of have a similar?
So that's kind of the point there is that we are very unique. So we looked at joint task force. Matt, did you want to speak to this?
So the mandate letter specifically mentioned looking at suggesting we look at two organizations, ALERT, which is the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team, and IHIT, which is the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team in BC, alerts in Alberta. So the jurisdictional scan covered both of those. And when I started speaking to senior leaders in those agencies, I also included a third one, which is the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, which is BC CFSEU. And the main reason for including that one is their governance structure is a bit different than the IHIT and the ALERT models. And I wanted to provide an opportunity to showcase different governance structures to give everyone an opportunity to see what may fit best in this jurisdiction.
Thank you. I'll open up to the commissioners then for questions that they might have. I'll save mine to the end. Commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Bezek-Escalard.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for all the work on this. As someone who's new to Halifax.
Actually, sorry, did we put the motion on the floor first? Pardon me? We should have the motion on the floor first. Would you mind? Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thanks, Chair. So I would move that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality, 1, endorse the 9 recommendations regarding the review of the Integrated Criminal Investigation Division as set forth in managerial review documentation that is attachment 1 of the staff report dated 18th June 2026, and 2, direct the Chief of Halifax Regional Police and advise the Chief Superintendent of the RCMP Halifax Regional District as part of the regular reports to the Board to provide a joint overview of the actions taken to address the implementation of the 9 recommendations, which are the subject of recommendation 1.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can I have a seconder? Commissioner Hinch, thank you. All right, Commissioner Bezek-Escalard, would you like to continue with your question?
Thanks, Chair. I actually kind of forget my train of thought, but let me start over then. As you said, thank you for all the work on this. I know, knowing that this is a very unique model in the country and probably globally as well, to have 2 parallel models of policing or two police agencies within the same jurisdiction. I appreciate the challenges in having an integrated team and working through these questions. It's kind of timely for me. We just, in my day job, we just had the NATO SNMG-1 just leave Halifax this morning, and I was chatting with my British and my Belgian counterpart on how we're working the medical support plan for the Standing Naval Medical Group, Maritime Group, and how we have different processes, different systems, but are all integrated under the NATO standardization agreements on how we make this work. So I guess the thing that strikes me from the report and how your report highlights some of the, specific challenges, like the RCMP, I believe, is an inspector rank, not having necessarily the level of control they ought to have, or the discrepancies between a sergeant or a staff sergeant between the 2 ranks, and how that can lead to differences in responsibilities for those two ranks between the two HRP and HRD, how that can lead to different expectations, even different career paths and experiences within division was interesting to me. So I guess the thing the thing with the recommendations that it strikes me as a reasonable thing to do, perhaps something that should have been done from the very beginning to ensure that these processes and expectations and paths through the division are all harmonized. So my question, I guess, is when you come up, when the recommendations are, if assuming that this passes, when the recommendations are carried out and this is all written in an MOU, like does that MOU have the force of authority like a standardization agreement that sets out, regardless of how the two organizations may evolve in the future or how they're staffed or how their pay is, like does it set out in detail how that will work out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much for that. So, part of what, we considered as we were writing this report is, who is the right person for, making the, the details of certain decisions. And so our collaborative working group, we didn't want to be too prescriptive in what that MOU would look like. At the same time, we wanted to communicate the importance of it being detailed, focused, and something that no matter who is sitting in the seats, the MOU can kind of stand and keep that kind of organizational memory. So we see kind of the joint, the joint impact of having a really strong MOU and then having a, high functioning integrated steering committee actually kind of fixing a lot of the problems that we saw, which feels like too easy an answer. But the MOU right now, there is nothing that's, specific to CID. We had kind of set aside a day to say, we're going to review all the different clauses that cover CID, and there was none. So, I think we're starting with a fresh slate, which is very useful. And, I think that MOU will speak to things like cost sharing, will speak to things like, buildings and absolutely staffing ratios. We're happy to kind of weigh in as asked on what those headings should look like, but we wanted to make sure that we were kind of still leaving space for the people who, should make those decisions to make them as they see fit. And then similar with the, the steering committee, things about like, policies and protocols and how we work within multiple collective agreements will definitely be part of what gets decided at those steering committee meetings. It just didn't feel like we were necessarily the right people to kind of write the standing agenda items. So, but yes, that is the intent behind the MOU, to kind of create that consistency going forward. Yeah.
Thanks, Ed. And I appreciate that the average member of the public, when they think about how a crime is investigated within HRM, they are probably not thinking of how did the ICID work and all these different things that impact how crime is investigated. So anyway, I appreciate a lot of this is going to lead to, assuming it passes, lead to a lot of work that I hope will make the division work well together.
Yeah, and thinking just kind of building on your question, which something I should have mentioned earlier, is part of the the qualitative information gathering did look at external stakeholders. So we interviewed all the Crown attorneys. We looked at organizations like the Sex Assault Nurse Examiner Program, Avalon. So Staff Sergeant McCormick and I did some pretty significant external engagement, and the impressions of folks outside of ICID were incredibly positive and glowing. Nobody knew, what agency the person supporting them was from, and spoke incredibly, incredibly highly of the service they have received from ICID. So I think a lot of when we're thinking about the policies, it's not so much even how crimes are solved. It's more around things like human resource functions like vacation pics and more, like the internal employee experience. So that's where I think we can see strengthening of the, the joint identity and strengthening of that like kind of unified experience at CID by adjusting those clauses. But in terms of, the satisfaction for service, no concerns were raised there. Yeah, so.
Thank you for highlighting that. I had that highlighted in my notes here that that was on page 15, and there's two comments that I really just wanted to read in because I think they were quite well phrased. It said that when you consulted with the external partners like the Crown and Medical Examiner's Office and such, that their viewpoint was that there was no perceivable agency-related differences
Yeah, that was
and
nice.
in the quality and any of the interactions. And then you further went on to say that the medical examiner in the Crown's office were very quick to acknowledge the exceptional work done by ICID and often recognized individuals by name and current investigators, technicians, crime analysis around the exemplary service. So I think it's just important to highlight that we're getting into things to optimize the organization. The organization is doing a good job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think keeping in mind that this was an exploratory exercise, this
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily like a diagnostic exercise. So, part of the work of transformation is building on what is already working and, really playing to the strengths we have. And there are many. So I think making sure that we don't kind of think of this as like a negative process of fixing something that's broken per se. It's, looking for opportunities and really leveraging the strengths we already have. So it was great to hear those.
Absolutely, because this work was done under Bill's leadership to look at something that hadn't been looked at for 20 years. And so it was designed and put in place, and it was operating. It was doing the mandate that it needed to fulfill. But every organization benefits from a step back and a bit of a review.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other commissioners, questions? Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Kathy Kara and the whole team. There's a lot of work, amazing. Thank you very much, and it's great work. My questions are more about the next steps and the recommendations, the 9 recommendations. And if I understood correctly in the presentation, the intent here is for a feedback loop or an update to come back here. Is that correct? And so when the chiefs do the report, they'll say, here we are. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is how I understand it. And I think, it's in the interest of kind of open communication, sharing, really making sure we don't lose sight of this. I don't have any fears that we will. I think there is already like momentum behind several of the recommendations, but absolutely keeping the BOPC members, abreast of how those recommendations are being actioned. I think that is the intent behind the motion.
Glad to hear that. I'm wondering if we could also maybe go a little deeper when that report's come back. When we looked at other reports that the chiefs report on, they'll say there are 43 action items and we've worked on 9, and that's kind of, maybe that's the highest level. I'm wondering if we can go a little deeper. I mean, identify, when we look at these items, these 9, are there issues with certain ones, or complications or obstacles, or is there, it was interesting, one of your comments, if I heard you correctly, they said the findings, the agreement about seniority being a career driver. I mean, that's a union issue. I mean, that's not an easy thing to tackle or change, right? So, there's some things that are that delicate. So, Bill has maybe a feedback on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Chair, through to the commission. I would see a couple things. So one is we will be creating an action plan for each one of the recommendations with potential timelines and reporting and milestones and those kind of things, which will help inform the comments back from both the chief superintendent and the chief or the deputy chief, whoever's on the piece, to allow this to move forward. The other piece that this will do is, because this is really the flagship division in relation to integration, councils would remember that IOU will report back on the viability of integrated policing, which is being targeted for September at this point right now. So some of this will form some of that information as well to get it back to the broader. So you'll be getting some of that information, and obviously subject to the direction of council, there'll be whatever reporting relationship council would want to have on a go forward as well for that. So, I'm cautiously optimistic that once we have it in place, that there'll be sufficient feedback to whatever degree of detail that the commission would like or council would like as we move forward.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, excellent. Once again, excellent work, everyone. Congrats.
Any other commissioners? Just one final comment, then I would say that, sorry. I didn't get the eye contact.
I did give you eye contact.
I missed that. I'm sorry. Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the report. I mean, it was very detailed and very, 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 sometimes, I'm still learning this process, especially when it comes to policing and integrating and all that stuff. So I'm still learning, and this was something that I'm still trying to digest a lot. A lot of lessening the gaps between the two agencies and things of that. I'm trying to figure out if there's, how am I trying to say this? I know there's still a lot of more work to do with that, but I'm trying to figure out when mental health comes into play for these. Is there any type of resource? Because it seems like there's a lot of, not saying infighting or anything, but there seems to be, when I read the report, it looks like there's a little bit of one agency compared to the other agency, that they're just not aligning.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Thank you. And certainly, mental health, especially in the current moment, is so important to consider. So happy to report, infighting was not something that is happening. And I would say probably close to every single person we interviewed really wanted to highlight that at the end of the day, we at the the officer, sergeant, staff sergeant level, like, we get along great. Like, integration is a positive because of the colleagues that we get to have. And so there wasn't there wasn't animosity or infighting between individuals. I think it really comes down to like organizational differences. So when you have two organizations, one with a different size and history and funding model, there's going to necessarily be discrepancies that come from that. And I think the individuals, those don't make resentments or anything between human to human. It's more the sense of like consistency of how certain things are done, and feeling like if there's greater consistency, that will be potentially less of a distraction from the strong relationships. The extent to which mental health came up is really around like feeling like valued, like around the employee experience. And so Kara spoke a bit to that. Just making sure that things like having agency over your career, that's coming down to the professional development recommendation, feeling like your leadership is consistent and everyone's pulling in the right direction, and you have faith that there isn't any kind of differing opinions above you, things like that.
And they're being supported as well, fully supported when it comes to those mental health issues, if they have. Again, it's very detailed and very, very, and I'm still learning all this. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Excellent. I just had a comment. It's an excellent report. It's well written, very informed, covered a lot of subject areas. There are some areas that are concerning that I see. I do see that the whole idea of how careers are developed within HRP may be a potential a recruitment barrier for experienced officers from other jurisdictions when they say, geez, if I'm going to come in over there and I really want to be CID, I'm going to have to wait 10, 12, 15 years. And I don't know, that does not seem right. There seems to be significant opportunities for cleaning this up, for lack of a better term. Recommendation number 5 then, where you talk about the back end of it, and a process by which performance has a demonstrated impact on promotions, movement into specialized divisions, and access to training opportunities in the long term. As Commissioner Mancini highlighted, number 5 is going to be challenging, but it's probably one of the most important things to overcome. And I hope that everyone comes together and that the union comes together as well and works together to improve the process, because it does not seem to be optimal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
So-
think, there was a town hall last night, and, this was a subject that came up. And I think there's evidence to suggest that, people are really interested in working collaboratively on, it's the same members for everyone. So making sure, and I should highlight, the important work that my colleague Joanne is leading around professional development and has been, for quite some time. I think it will align very nicely with some of the concerns, let's say, that came out of this report. So I think good things to come, and I think there'll be very positive updates in the future.
And as I said earlier, I think the highlight though is that this organization is doing great work, and the public should have confidence in the investigative process and the outcomes.
Absolutely.
By both sides, for sure.
Yeah.
We're talking again about making it optimal, optimizing it. Not that it's not delivering excellent quality outcomes.
I mean, if you even think about the time and the interest of like participation in the process, there was a lot of passion and professionalism at ICID. So that was humbling to witness.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Mancini.
Another question just popped into my little brain here. You know, how does this board measure changes to governance as improvement, or even I think of the broader service delivery? I mean, the objective here is improvement, even though things are working well. It's you know, how do we measure that? How do we measure that that there has been an improvement once the actions are put in place? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so you're looking at kind of measuring the impact on service delivery, not just on employee experience.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think you know, this is probably part of like a bigger question, you know, in terms of service delivery, and the focus of this was really the kind of the experience of integration at ICID. The extent to which we looked at service delivery really was limited to like partners and collaborators in the process, not members of the public. That was outside of the scope for this review. But at the same time, I think having you know,
we represent the members of the public.
Pardon me?
This commission represents the board.
Absolutely. And so I think, you know, to the commissioner's point, this is just a starting off point. And so, you know, this is the beginning of work that is, you know, going to have a lot of impact on service delivery, but making sure we kind of get our ducks in a row, do things in the right order.
Before we go there.
But if you're thinking about the recommendation around, you know, clear business processes and file analysis, I think that's where we really will see the, you know, the implications and the impact for service delivery, and have a different angle for looking at that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Can we call for the question?
Question?
All those in favor of the motion put forward? Motion carried unanimously. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We'll move on to 10.4, and then we're going to go in camera. So we'll kind of skip the break and get 10.4 done so that the majority of the public portion can be concluded. 10.4, members of the Board of Police Commissioners. So it's 10.4.1. Commissioner Mancini's introduced a motion around sexual violations case review working group. I'd ask Commissioner Mancini to place the motion on the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll put the following motion on the floor that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality, 1, nominate up to 3 members to a sexual violence case review working group to inform the overall scope and objectives of board policy on a sexual violence case review process. And 2, request the support of HRM Legal Services to provide the sexual violations work group legal analysis of options that may enable the sharing of case file information to achieve the working group's objectives of a case review process. So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Bezic-Escalard, thank you for seconding the motion. Any questions?
So
or
if I
comments?
may,
Yes, you may, sir.
Mr. Chair. So unfortunately, we had a speaker here today that couldn't make it, and we're going to reschedule the speaker. But you know, part of our work with the board's working plan is to look at a policy around sexual violations and case review. So to be able to do that, the first part of this motion is pretty straightforward. It's let's create a committee as we did with body worn cameras and other types of policy work. So that's the first part. That's a no-brainer. The second part is, if I can kind of back up here, before my second time here on the Board of Commission, the decision to incorporate the same case review that the RCMP does, one of the rationales that I understood, one of the obstacles or concerns was, this is in Amy's territory, she left, was around privacy. You know, the interpretation of, can we share with a third group information from a file? And so there was questions about that. And there are other types of case reviews that exist. There's not just one out there, there's many out there. So I think our role is, and part of the policy is, let's make sure that we're looking at, or HRP specifically have all the information they have to be aware of what review policies are out there, what case reviews are out there. But some of them do involve getting a third party involved in a case review. So we're suggesting, let's get legal representation, let them have a look at it and say, is there an issue here with doing that? Is that truly a threat to privacy. And so we're trying to do two things at once here. Let's create the committee, which is a no-brainer. The second piece is if we are to look at other case review approaches and those that involve a third party, let's make sure legally that that is actual fact and not just an assumption. So that's the rationale behind this motion. So I hope you support this motion. We'll create the committee, and then we'll have legal investigate that even further to see if we can share that information.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Hinch.
Commissioner Mancini, thank you for bringing this forward. I probably still have a few questions with regards to the motion. When you're asking about creating a committee, though, are we looking for folks that, who have experienced, or are we looking, is this something totally?
Just like we did the body-worn cameras, it's a committee of commissioners.
Committee of our
commissioners?
board, yeah.
Okay, okay. Just trying to get clarification here. Okay, I can support this for sure. So yeah, I will support it. Thank you.
Of other note, it's limited to 3 members because as soon as we hit 4, it's an official meeting. And so to have a working group, it has to be 3 or less, so it's below quorum. That's kind of
Okay.
what legal has told
Well, I'll
us.
put my name out there. I would like to be a part of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're amenable, we have a number of people who aren't here today. I'd like to put it out to email to gather everybody's interest, and we could sort it out in an email format as to who the members are. Would you be amenable to that? Okay. Any other comments or questions on the Commissioner Bézek-Escalard?
Thanks, sir. Just because you had brought it up, I think it's clear and understood by everyone that the work of the working group will be public and will be voted on. And, whatever our recommendations that come from the
Absolutely.
working group will be here. So it's not that the working group is below quorum in order to do stuff that will not be brought to the public. It will be, their work will be public, of course, by the end.
Thank you. It is the exact same process that we've used to help inform policy development by the board, which then goes through many internal steps before it actually comes here. But yes, absolutely. The document will come here, then it goes out for the public consultation period, and eventually, finds its way. But it's really too about number 2. There's some privacy issues that need to be researched, and in order to do that, though, we have to understand what the scope and objectives are of the policy. So it kind of has to work collaboratively together. So we didn't want, Councillor or Commissioner Mancini's insight was to bring these together to address that gap. Any other questions, concerns? Call for the question. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. No new motions under 11, I don't believe, at this time. And no added items. And so we're going to move in camera. Can I have a motion to move in camera?
Chair, before we move in camera,
Yeah.
can we do the approval of the in-camera minutes in public, please?
Sure. So that is item
13.1.
Oh, I don't have a 13.1 on here. Oh, okay, there we go. Could we have somebody move
I'll move
the
it.
minutes? Thank you, Commissioner Hinch. The seconder?
I move that the in-camera private minutes of June 3rd, 2026 be approved as circulated. Is that what you are asking me to do? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. All those in favor of approving the minutes as read?
All right.
Unanimous. Thank you kindly. All right. Now, can we have a motion to move in camera? Thank you, Commissioner Hinch.
Can we take 5 minutes?
Yep, we'll take 5 minutes. That's 5. When we come back, we will just be ratifying what was done in camera. So. All right, when you're ready, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Bezic-Escalar, would you like to read the motion into the record?
Thank you, Chair. So motion is that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality, 1, adopt the direction provided in camera in private, and 2, direct the private and confidential report dated 26 May 2026 be maintained private and confidential.
And we have a seconder? Thank you, Commissioner Hinch. All those in favor? Motion carried unanimously. All right, that's it for 13. Any notices of motion? When do you, aside the motion that you might be considering with relates to data, would that be September, October, just a later date?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair O'Malley and Commissioner Bezic-Escalar. In terms of notice of motions, when we do them as part of the minutes, we actually have to have kind of like the wording for the motion in consideration. So I would suggest that we not proceed with that right now, but you are welcome to submit a request for consideration form when you have consulted with Chris on the wording and or with other staff as well. Yep.
My knuckles are sore. Thank you. Date of the next meeting is September 2nd, when I will be away. And so we're ready for adjournment. So please call for a mover. Oh, Commissioner Hinch, thank you very kindly. Everyone have a great rest of their summer.